Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Brand Innovators Livecast series. Thank you so much for being patient. What is a Brand Innovators Summit without a little bit of technical difficulties? But thank you for joining. We are here today for the Creative Transformation Summit brought to you by Celtra. Today is extra special because we have a phenomenal event and an awesome lineup of marketers. So please join us for the first session of the day. I bring to you Fabiola Villarde, the Senior Director at Emporio Armani Retail Group. The session will be moderated by Vanya Berzin, the SVP of Product Marketing at Celtra. So welcome. Hello, glad you both can join us.
Hi, I'm happy to be joining. Fabiola, I think you're muted.
Yes, here we are.
Technology
is not today on my side, but we're here.
We're here at last. We'll have fun and I'll come back soon.
Perfect. Thank you, Ariel. Hi, Fabiola. I'm happy we have you joining at last, and it happens. Look, it happened to everybody. I think in the past year of virtual meetings, we've all had difficulties. One would think that we figured it out, but it's always something. So yeah, I'm just for the audience. I'm Vanya, as Ariel mentioned. I'm SVP Product Marketing at Celtra. And I'm here today to speak to Fabiola here. And I would love for us to start with you just giving us a quick overview of, your responsibilities and, about your role at Emporio Armani.
Sure. Well, I'm Senior Director of Retail in Emporio Armani, and that includes all the channels where the brand is. It's a very exciting project because it's how we are aligning all the channels and the brand awareness through our customers or our community in the American market.
Perfect. Thank you. So when you say channels, I think like when we spoke first, in my world, when somebody says channels, I think of, display, video, social, but in your world, channels are really, could you call them point of sales?
Yes, point of sales is either in the boutique, brick and mortar boutiques, within department stores, in all alignment. For us, it is important that, especially, I will say, the time that we are living right now with the new retail, it's very important that the clients perceive the brand as one, despite where they can purchase.
Great. So something I've learned about, Armani during my research for this session is that it's one of the rare big fashion, luxury brands that is still independent and, under Mr. Armani himself, which I find fascinating. Most of the other, luxury brands are part of this large mega fashion houses. So what does, you operate across multiple fields and industries. Obviously, it's not just fashion, it's also, lifestyle, but nevertheless, it's far more consolidated than other players in your field. So in relation to that, how does this affect your work and your internal operations and team structures? Is it like more of a global team, or you have like local teams? Would you say that how the business is set up, and how does that impact the creative quality as well?
Well, we are the setup that we have is, by markets. We had a corporate house here in America, but at the same time, we work very close with our headquarters, and so understanding what is happening globally. One of our strategies that we had, starting last year with the difficulties that the world has, it was to be more in contact and to react. I would say one of the advantages that is to be still, on private is that we can react faster. We can see a larger perspective, and we can take decisions of how we want to, those strategies that we need to react or have immediate results. It could be, marketing, it could be product, it could be a immediate direct contact with our clients. So I would say one of the advantages to remain private is to have those decisions and be proactive.
Yeah, it sounds like, especially in the times that we've just been through in the past 18 months or so, that is definitely a benefit when you need to, shift your strategies overnight, basically. And would you say that you've during this time, obviously, I'm sure you've had e-commerce plans prior to this pandemic, but would you say that the situation on the market and, in our lives has shifted your plans and you kind of adjusted them due to the pandemic, invested more into e-commerce experiences? We've seen, a lot of that across other luxury brands, kind of trying to create an online experience that is on par with what you typically would offer at a brick and mortar store, which is, an experience in itself. And just how do you address that, and how do you do that online?
Yeah, well, for sure, this last year, well, I will say this help us and support us to take or to make that step that we need to have. We had previous to that, we have an online, but it was the moment to accelerate the omni-channel because of the time and we need to do it fast. We divided in phase. So we start with the phase 1 last year to prepare and to have the direct contact, or that the client we don't lose, the visibility of our consumer. But also in one of the changes or the reaction that we had to have, it was our inventory. So it was important also to see what we had with the third parties, what it was, concessions or wholesale. So it was important to see what we have in order to switch or to shift, I will say, our inventory and the ability that the clients or to resonate with the client's needs in that moment. Our collection is wide, so that was great, and it was important because we have the ability to put on the side a little bit, all what it was the suiting and all the formal wear, and bring in the front what it was the sport wear. It was that really is still is one of our strengths, and it was a very quick shift that we had in the e-commerce. What we did, it was to implement faster, phase 1 of omni-channel, and start preparing our teams to be our partners in order that the project will be successful. Phase 2 is how we can connect e-commerce or online experience and have the partnership of our brick and mortar. So what happened is that the client advisors role has become more relevant for this project. It's important for us that not only the client comes and have access to our product online, but the most important is that they don't lose the vision of what is the Armani universe.
And you delivered that through these client advisors that are now operating online, but like somewhat substituting what was in the brick and mortar store before.
Yeah, creating those chats, when it's the client, having those conversations and connect with the direct with the client. In the client's needs or the client's desire, they have the ability to connect directly with the store. So what we did is we the system finds the closer store in the region where the client is located. And so what happened is if they can have a text conversation, they can have a call conversation, or they can have a virtual conversation, a video. And that's amazing because they can be connected and have a virtual tour in the store. And maybe they were planning to buy a jacket, and at the end, our desire is that they get the full experience, a total look, or even those conversations, or even reimagining a product that they already own, or money product that they already own, and they reimagine, and they would try to create new looks or new wardrobing for them.
Sounds like quite an adjustment for those creative advisors, customer advisors, to go from this, I meet somebody in person to go online. But I think we've all had to make that adjustment, and I think it's never the same, but we can get it pretty close, right, with some right technology and positive attitude. So you mentioned, the omni-channel, strategy and delivering a unified and seamless brand experience across all these channels, like being like almost like one of the main objectives with everything you're developing right now. This sounds like a multi-year complex plan that you would roll out through documents, and you would roll in some consultants and to transform the organization. But has this been the case, or have you been able to tackle this successfully, on the go and like faster because of the pandemic, or faster because you have a more centralized organization?
I will say that it has, considering, as you said, the difficulties or how impactful we want to be, it has been in a way easy or easier than what we thought. Working with our client advisors very close, it is key, and it has been key, and because it's convinced them that it's not that we don't compete. Is that e-commerce at this moment cannot. I mean, I will say in retail in general, e-commerce cannot compete anymore with brick and mortar. It has to be one retail. We have to think like 360 vision. Then we have to explain what would be, the opportunities and what would be the advantages, especially them. So they have a wider assortment. They have not only for that client that is interacting in that moment online, but also that the client advisor can see that inventory is wider than what they own in their own door. So they have to see a wider picture in order that they can see what is the individual benefit that they are going to be having. And then, of course, that they can increase their book. They can increase the relations, and the customer experience. It sounds. Let's say it sounds very easy. It's simple, but yeah, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work with our teams, for sure.
Yeah. But it sounds like you're getting it right. You have it under control. So you mentioned the areas that you needed to address, and in order to make this process, do you think technology can help in this shift, and what role has it played in this process of adopting a different mindset, really?
Yeah, technology is of course, very important, and is key, especially because we need that they feel that the process is seamless, that the process is easy for them. That is not going to be adding time, or it's not going to be time consuming, but it's only about giving benefits, to be faster. Also to give the immediate attention and the immediate answer or service to our customer, and that the client advisor feel that for them is easier to manage that task, let's say. And then, of course, technology part is in the moment that we can identify that client, that we can connect that client to the right store. How they, I will say, the ultimate, not challenge, what we want to accomplish with this is that the client is not stay only online. What we really want to accomplish is to bring the client into our doors, to give them the full experience and to connect and build a stronger relationship with them. So technology is important in this part because it's how the way that we are going to find out how to activate, and that's another project that we're working on, is how can we activate those clients that had already made a one-time purchase, and we can connect and give the right service, and we can connect them with the right client advisor to start building the profile and get full experience into our universe.
Sounds interesting. So you are still kind of brick and mortar and physical experience and getting them in person into one of the Armani world kind of places, if you want, is still something that is extremely important for you to be able to deliver on that value that the brand is promising, to kind of indulge them in the Armani world.
Totally, yes.
Yeah. So I saw this, I feel like the 40-year anniversary that you had recently was one of those experiences, right? That would probably be hard to capture online. And, there's, I've saw like events and the magazine and, the kind of like the physical campaign, everything like really high quality, polished as, anything that comes from Armani. But when you translate that into, digital content, not just like digital experience via like one-on-one relationships, but like more, maybe broader, all the way down to the lower funnel experience. How do you make sure that this, it's still this Armani value is there? Like is this something that you feel like you're doing well today, or is this a challenge at all?
I will say that it's in progress. For sure, it's important. We're working on it because now, especially with our sales team, it's a constantly communication with our customers one-to-one. So it's not anymore, of course, a text is not enough. Emails, I think our bet is more on the mobile than email system. So we provide them with, or try to provide them with content that make them a full experience. So as you said, it's in progress, first of all, because we had different generations with our team. So we need everybody to adapt. They are adapting to it, but it's about how fast we can make it happen. And as you said, is we need to somehow to have one language across. So it's in progress. But yes, I will say that it has been a challenge. It has been a very interesting process. But also it has had a great surprises, positive surprises, not only coming from our internal clients, but also the external clients. And in the beginning, we thought that it was going to be more difficult, that they adapt to this hybrid, especially when we start the reopening and all that and start doing the hybrid service. We thought that it was going to be harder for our external clients to adapt to this.
So I know we're going towards the end of our conversation. There's so much more. Fabiola and I had a really longer conversation in preparation for this session that I really enjoyed, and I want to get some of those things in front of the audience as well. So there's no doubt that the pandemic has had a massive impact on the fashion, the retail industries, and a lot has been said on that, and we're seeing, a bounce back in sales, including Armani seeing like a massive, success in the first half of this year. But it feels like, the competition today is not just, luxury brand towards luxury brand. It's more like you're almost like competing against, every brand that has an Instagram page with the shop, right? Like, and or the fast fashion high street brands. What do you think, is the answer for, a luxury brand like Armani to differentiate against that and kind of win that battle, if you want?
Well, I will say the culture and the brand values, and that's for the fashion and the luxury fashion houses. It's important that, especially now that all the information is out there, the COVID has brought us, to be more exposed and have visibility. So we have to be very transparent. So for us, I think our strength, and we feel very good, is that we were exposed, and now we see that the clients, that we resonate, and the clients are aware of more about the brand values, not only about our product, but more about our culture and how we impact or continue working with the community, continue working with, and be aware of, for example, climate changes and all that. So we are a sustainable company or brand, and now the client is aware of it. Now we can show those collections that is already, social responsible, and now the clients can see that is nothing that we start doing it, but they can have the information when we have start working already, few years ago.
Seems like some of the luxury brands are competing against that, massive market of fast fashion with collaborations like Gucci and Balenciaga, Fendi and Versace is the most recent example. Is there what's your take on it? And also, is there an Armani collaboration somewhere in the works?
Well, we had something lined up, still in progress, so there's to be but I will say that the communication and the approach that as you said, the project of Gucci and Balenciaga, but I think the one of everybody is more amazed about is the one with Versace and Fendi, because they are totally different fashion houses. And I think that is a great moment that retail is having, that they can recognize what is the strength of one brand and the other, and they can complement each other. And that ultimately is that they want to have that conversation with the same client. So I will say it's a moment that they can put together their strength and have a very strong message to the new client. We can be global. We are, I think, also starting last year, we become, we were global, and then we start making, more locals. But I think with those collaborations and those, the new way of communication, it's to go global again until we can start traveling as we used to in the past.
And you said it yourself there. Local markets versus global communications. It's fine. I think brands are finding that as the key strategy right now. And just to wrap it up with that, what is we're heading into Q4, the quarter that can make or break a brand. Sometimes it seems like it will be yet another very unique end of year, and we'll see how the sales go. I hope well for Armani, but what do you think, is the luxury retail of tomorrow? What can we expect in, the years to come, maybe 2022, 23? What's your predictions?
Wow, that's a big question. It's hard to predict, but I think the personalization, I think, is going to still very strong. I think it's, especially in luxury, we want to have the trends, we want to know what is in fashion, but the most important thing is we want to feel as an individual. And so I think that is still going to be one of the key and high bullet points that the fashion houses need to have.
Yeah, So we're not going back to pre-pandemic, but we're going, forward to post-pandemic, different.
I don't think the client wants that the fashion houses goes to pre-pandemic at all. I think in general, I think there has been a lot of new the fashion houses have found a new way to communicate, to sell, to a lot of proposals are out there, and the strength, finally we are hearing what the customer wants to see. We are talking the same, well, we are trying to talk the same language. We are trying to go to the platform that they want us to be in. So I don't think that they want us to go back traditional of 2 years ago. Definitely, I think they are enjoying, they're enjoying to see that we want to go to TikTok, that we want to have, for example, Balenciaga again, the last fashion show, the way that they put it together, that virtual fashion show with the Simpsons and all those type of things. I think they're having a lot of fun for sure. And they are going to keep asking us new ways that we can continue resonating with them.
So future is fun. I'll take that.
Totally. And I'm very confident, that great things are coming, and we are trying to be faster, having better proposals, less tools probably, and we are seeing how resourceful we can be, less in a short time period.
Thank you, Fabiola. This was a pleasure have this conversation with you. I hope the audience enjoyed it as well. Unfortunately, we don't have time for any questions, so I'll just pass it back to Ariel.
Thank you. Thank you again. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Fabiola. What an incredible note to end on, always leaning into the future. So thank you so much, and hope to have you back soon.
Thank you.
So with this next session, I am incredibly excited to introduce the next two panelists. We have Santhi Ramesh, the CMO International of Digital at the Hershey's Company. The session will be moderated by Miha Mikek, the CEO at Celtra. Welcome.
Thank you, Ariel. Thank you.
Hi, Santhi. Great to see you again.
Great to be here again. Thank you, Ariel, and good to meet you, Miha.
Yeah, good to meet you as well. Hi, Shanti. Thank you so much for responding to our invite, and we are really excited to have this discussion with you today on the very relevant topic. So, with all the changes that are going on in the world, it seems that creative transformation is a never-ending story, and I would love to ask you at the start, what does this mean for you, and what does this mean for Hershey? How is creative transformation actually, playing a role in your company, in your organization?
Sure. As the CMO of International at Hershey, I often ask myself and my team, how can we provide meaningful experiences for each and every consumer around the world? How can we create more moments of goodness and spread the legacy of our founder, Milton Hershey? And that's the impetus of everything we do. And with the pandemic, with the busy lifestyles of consumers, I realized the need and importance for transforming the way we connected with consumers and the services we provide them, right? From the portfolio, the products that we served, to the communication, the messaging. And we need to be creative, right? In our targeting, our how we connect with our consumers. And not only the portfolio and the integrated marketing communication, but also how we go to market, right? The creative transformation starts from the inside all the way to the shelf, whether it be offline or online. And more importantly, the transformation had to come from within. Our ways of working, how we operated to deliver this creative transformation to our consumers.
Great. So, we just heard how fashion industry needed to change and adapt, and obviously, lots going on, and very exciting both for the consumers as well as for the company, just new opportunities opening up. So can you speak a little bit to how the food industry adapted to this change, and maybe even just taking us through the experience, like, first couple of months, obviously, we were all, just kind of watching and guessing what's going to happen next. And then, we went from this state of shock to kind of like, this is the new reality. What can we do to adapt and clearly serve the customers better? So can you just explain to us, like, how the food industry in general actually experienced that, and how you dealt with within your organization to just drive this transformation and change?
Absolutely. First, from an industry perspective, we saw some common threads across multiple areas. One, with consumers, we are more health conscious. So the entire food industry had to adapt their portfolio to be more health conscious. Second, there was this boom in e-commerce with consumer shopping behavior shifting, and the food industry had to adapt their channels and accelerate their e-commerce. And third, consumer staying at home shifted their media consumption. So from a food industry, from an advertising perspective, we had to shift our media consumption. And that happened across, my peer industry partners in the food industry. And within Hershey, we tapped into all these areas, right? We were agile, we were quick to observe these trends and accelerate key initiatives so that we can serve our consumer needs better. First, in the area of product innovation to address the need for the health and conscious. Second, in the area of content, so that we can better deliver the key messaging, the right messaging in the evolving media channels. And third, accelerating our e-commerce initiatives around the world. And I can go into in depth a little bit more if needed on these three areas.
Great. So we talked about the the kind of bringing together of the lower funnel and upper funnel, so branding and more performance marketing. Obviously, because e-commerce became the main way of how consumers probably got to your products. So can you talk about what you've done internally, and maybe even where the starting point was? Like, did you have before separate teams that were just chasing different objectives and KPIs, and then how did you actually put these things together, and what kind of outcomes did you see as a result of that?
Sure. Especially with this media channel evolving and with e-commerce booming, I saw the need to integrate brand marketing and performance marketing so that we can deliver a seamless omni-channel experience for the consumer. Because it doesn't matter the consumer, whether they are searching on Google, whether they are on Amazon, whether they are on any social media channel, it needed to be a seamless experience and not disjointed. It did not matter how many siloed teams we have in our organization. At the end of the day, the consumer treats it as one Hershey. And that's what we are all about. As an organization, we have a one Hershey mindset, and we work together so that we can deliver the consumer in a single-minded manner. And so there were three things that I did. In order to understand the consumer along the full funnel, we were very focused on uncovering consumer insights by the key channel or touch point. And especially during the pandemic, it was not easy, right? You can't be face-to-face in a focus group or an ethnography. So we leveraged AI-based tools and social listening to uncover those consumer needs and shopper needs. Second is all about, as you mentioned, setting the right team structure in place, right? We had brand marketing teams, the performance marketing teams, but we need to think holistically and pulling those teams together, setting a common vision that was full funnel based and ensuring that for every meeting, I had the entire team there. It's not the brand marketer or the inside or the e-retail team. It was a holistic team working together hand in hand to deliver the experience. And the third aspect was about data. With the various tools that we have in the ecosystem, the connectivity of data across the full funnel was important, right? And transparency of data, as well as being able to connect the data that were coming out of these different systems, is essential to ensure that we have integrated brand marketing and performance marketing so that we drive not only brand power, but also sales.
So through this data and all the insights, like what did you find out that you could share with this audience? Like, are we just, as a, I mean, eating more chocolate or like buying it at different times? Have certain products within your portfolio really excelled because, they just mean something else from a brand value perspective? So just like what have you seen that really looked very different than prior to the pandemic?
Sure. First of all, I would say that consumer demand for chocolate continues to rise. And that's good news, right, for the chocolate industry, Hershey. And two drivers, primarily. One is there is always this core need of relieving stress during the pandemic and the need for comfort to uplift consumers. And that became even more prominent during this time. And our portfolio fit right smack to serve that need. And we were available from an in-stock perspective at the places that consumers were shopping, both in brick and mortar stores as well as e-commerce. And we further tapped into this need to uplift consumers by launching new products around the world, like ice cream shop chocolate in 14 countries around the world during the pandemic to deliver that cooling sensation of the ice cream in a convenient chocolate bar, or like Twizzlers tongue twisters in Canada, or Pelon lime and salt in Mexico, which are these classic stress relievers that you would like to munch on during the workday or after work, that gives you relief, right? And gives you that comforting sensation. So that's one area. The second area is in the area of health and wellness, which I mentioned, right? We saw the need to evolve our portfolio. So with the partnership of our cross-functional teams, we launched a portfolio of better for you products, from sugar-free Hershey chocolate in some of our markets like Mexico, Canada, and US, to immunity cocoa in India, to portion controlled Reese's Thins in Canada, right? So we are tapping into the presence of positives like special dark with dark chocolate with antioxidants in Brazil, absence of negatives, which is the low sugar, low calorie, and third, it's having functional benefits like the immunity cocoa, etc.
Wow, that's interesting. And are these products actually doing really well on the market? Are you planning to move the whole company into this direction and just kind of like everyone's trying to push the economies into more sustainable and mindful of the future? Is this where your industry as a whole is going as well?
So as I said before, there is always this common area of sensorial indulgence and comfort, where that never dies, and that's always an area. But we want to give consumers the choice for better for you And that's an area that we are delivering as well. And then third is people want to connect. It's not just about physical wellness with Better For You. It is also mental health and well-being. And that is where chocolate serves as a way to provide gifting. And in a virtual world, the ability to connect during key occasions like birthdays, anniversaries, and holidays. These are the three areas that we have found are important to the consumer. And we want to provide them with the portfolio and the choices so that they can always rely on Hershey's as a brand to provide them the portfolio across the wide variety of needs that they have.
Great. So great to hear. So would like to switch a little bit the topic to how you handle the situation within your very large international organization. You have, I believe, team members in 60 plus countries, over 100 people or even more, and obviously out of a sudden everyone is working most likely remotely. Also 60 markets. There's almost every day some sort of change in the market. So how did you stay productive? How did you deliver on all these changes and challenges while everything pretty much has changed within your team? And perhaps even talking about, have you used more technology? Have you done something else? Like what did you do as a manager to keep your people in marketing productive and up to speed?
Sure. First of all, as every company, but more importantly in international, our team members are diverse, not only from a cultural perspective, but also have a variety of situations. Like there are people with kids, young kids, parents, and there are people who are caring for their elderly. Some are single or alone. And as I mentioned earlier, our first priority is to ensure the safety of our teams, both physically, but also mentally. And what that meant is I had to empathize with their situation. I can't assume that the luxury that I have and the facilities that I have are available in some place in India or Mexico. So I needed to empathize with them from a connectivity perspective, from an availability perspective, and mention that I'm there for them. And that connection and empathy was very important. Second, related to that connection is that, call it, I'm there for them, right? As you mentioned, in a remote environment, it's not easy. And I'm a person, as a leader, I love leading my team and by walking around. I ideate with them. I get excited when I'm walking around, meet people, and we lost this opportunity, like I'm sure you do too, right?
Exactly.
Your organization as a CEO. So I missed those impromptu ideations and also not being available for them when they had problems that they faced. Like they could walk in anytime when I'm in the office. So I leveraged, of course, like most of the industry, instant messaging tools so that I'm answering those questions or clarification, making sure that they know that I'm available, right? That's the key, making sure that they know that they can reach out. And I set up virtual coffee chats and lunch mentoring sessions so that I can reach not only to my immediate leadership team, but so that I can cascade down all the way to the organization where we just don't have to talk about work, right? It's not about this project or this initiative, but asking them about their situation, their ideas. And this allowed them to be heard and be part of the organization, and also helped me learn a lot and to shape the vision that I needed to form for the team. And third, it was all about inspiring teams, as you said, right? How do I motivate them, right? I don't have a great town hall here where I can rally the troops. I had to be equally productive and effective virtually. And so when I conducted my virtual, and we still made sure that I am holding virtual offsites and ideation workshops with 100 plus people. And in order to get that participation, I had to be creative in our facilitation, in my discussions. So I had help from my team to leverage polls, new icebreakers, panel discussions, so that we can raise those thought-provoking questions, solicit ideas, and unleash the creativity and the diversity of thought that we have in our teams.
Did you also do something to just become more agile and, faster in terms of how you can respond to just different things that happen in the market? And it's okay, pandemic was one thing, but it seems to be the new reality. So, almost every month there's something new that is like pretty big thing in the world, and it's surely impacting many markets, from various social topics to just to kind of maybe name out a few, even the recent things we're seeing from social media, challenges, or geopolitical things that happen. So how are you responding as a such a global organization from a creative standpoint? Because you need to stay relevant and just kind of put all these things in a context of any big campaign that you're working on. So any changes there, or like?
Yeah, so I will bucket these into two sets of changes, and I think you alluded to a little bit. One is on the technology and the tools that we put in place to modernize our marketing and be agile. And the second is around our ways of working. Yeah, so I will answer it in two parts, if I may.
Great, absolutely.
From technology and tools, we had to advance our technological capabilities to enable future forward modern marketing, right? We partnered externally with suppliers to expand our ecosystem of marketing technologies so that we could implement a digital tech stack that enables us to be agile, but also deliver a seamless omni-channel experience. And that is a tech stack that is across the full funnel, to your earlier point. So we implemented tools for social listening to uncover those insights. And there were tools that I was amazed how the team was able to deliver within just 2 weeks, 250 video diaries across 5 countries, and able to quantify the data as well. Versus, as you know, typically in a big organization like ours, it takes at least 3 months to get the qualitative, and then you do another 3 months for quantitative. But here we were able to be agile across multiple countries, get quantitative and the qualitative data with speed. So that's just one example to show how our tools has helped us be on top of what's happening with the consumer. And of course, we did the ongoing social listening so that we can tap into those needs that are emerging in social media. And third, we did also proactive social campaigns so that we can reach out and find new consumer insights. Now, that's from a technology tools standpoint. Now, from a ways of working and operation to drive agility, I believe in setting priorities, right? I know in this world, it's not about yearly priorities. Yes, there may be annual priorities, but there are monthly priorities, weekly priorities, and that, as you said, it's constantly evolving. But it is that alignment with my leadership team on any moment of time. What is our priorities? Not only with my immediate leadership team, but also with my cross-functional partners who I rely on greatly to drive the success. Second, it is about communicating and cascading those priorities all the way across the organization, right? It's not just about, say, telling them, okay, these are the priorities, but gaining buy-in and commitment from the teams all the way down who are actually going to execute it with the same sense of passion and sense of urgency that I have, right? So in order to get that, needed to communicate the why behind our priorities. And that was very, very important. So I have done monthly calls, and my leadership team has done monthly videos where we shared the why behind it and some success stories. So it's all about storytelling, right? We talk about external consumer storytelling, but during the pandemic, I realized even more so how important it was to get the storytelling within our employees, internal storytelling, so that we could rally the troops. And last but not least, it was also about leveraging sprint processes and design thinking methodologies, not just in product innovation or technology, but in all ways through the marketing process, from e-commerce to creating communication. And that process has been instilled, and that's what has allowed us to be agile and move fast.
Great. So, at the end, I'd like to spend a little bit time on the future and, how you are getting ready for the future, also from a creative standpoint. And is there like any immediate objectives from a creative standpoint or creative transformation standpoint that you still are working on or want to accomplish? Like what's the next big thing for your organization?
So, of course, as a Hershey company, we are always consumer insight focused, right? So we want to serve the consumer needs across our occasions, the key occasions, and be top of mind for them, right? For us, creating more moments of goodness and sharing the purpose that we have as a Hershey organization and making sure that it permeates across all the countries and in anything and everything we do is one of the key important things. And as I say, each brand or company has a unique purpose and reason for being. And for Hershey, it is creating more moments of goodness, right? And when that ties very well with the consumer needs and values, then the authenticity, the value-added experience becomes very clear. And this aligns very well with our Gen Z, which is the next generation of consumers, and is also a critical factor in not only motivating our talent, as I mentioned about our internal storytelling, but also about attracting and retaining them. So net, staying true to our purpose, creating more moments of goodness, and then the magic happens.
Yeah, beautiful said. That's great. So maybe we invite also the rest of you who are listening here to just submit some questions if there are any. Otherwise, Ariel, how much more time do we have here? Are we pretty much at the end of our time? Oh, 9 minutes. Great. So we can then continue. Okay, well, if there are any questions, we'll certainly, ask those questions. So then let me then ask you a few more questions in regards to just, how you also, dealt with the changes in the media. So obviously, as consumers stayed at home, they just spend more time in front of, streaming devices, so clearly more video. With that, you probably needed a different approach to creative. So how did the change of the media landscape and how consumers spend their time impact your challenges on the creative side, and what did you do with that?
Absolutely. And to that point, the whole industry, the consumers shifted their media consumption, and we shifted with that, right? We were quick to shift. And as a lot of, particularly in the media world, gaming increased, social media consumption increased, and we adapted our media mix appropriately across our markets. And then more importantly, given the increase in consumption of media, we also saw that there were new consumer groups also consuming media more so than what we had observed before. And with our, we had to be also smart in our advertising spend, right? We can't just increase our spending, we just had to shift it. But we leveraged user-generated content a lot in order to adapt to these various touch points quickly, because we don't have time for big photo shoots all over again. To your point, we had to be agile, and user-generated content was the way we were able to get content in a real, authentic manner, and allowed us to drive advocacy for our brand. And we were very focused about who we targeted for user-generated content. We targeted high frequency, high loyal brand users who understand our brand, but at the same time, we were open to evolving our brand communication the way consumers wanted to, right? So that comfort level is something that was a big shift for us as a company, because packaging, when they provide, may not be the perfect. It may be a little bit crinkled. It may not be in the perfect lighting that we may want, but hey, it is real. It is a real kitchen that the consumer has, and it's the real, it may be a little bit of clutter in the background, but that's real, and that became viral and resonated well with our consumers.
Great. So have you tried also any of the newer channels, or did you venture into, the where consumers started spending a lot of time, for instance, like TikTok? Like, what are you like, taking the approach to really, go into these things early and just take some risks in order to better understand, what you can do within those communities and how to talk to them and how to develop your own voice and authenticity?
Yeah. We have deployed on TikTok, Twitch, for example, in certain markets. And both of those has played, in addition to, the traditional Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, etc. And we have leveraged influencers on TikTok in some markets to drive advocacy for our brand, and it becomes viral and it becomes credible, right? So that is also what I bucket under user-generated content, the influencing on TikTok. Twitch is another channel from a gaming perspective, real time, where we targeted those snackers, the late night snackers and the gamers, and that has also been efficient and productive for us. So
for that, you probably need some creative that can be viable products right away, and then really super fast delivery through some service. So this would
yes, absolutely. And to that point, with e-commerce, we have observed the need for instant satisfaction. So 1 hour delivery, 2 hour delivery models have come up in a variety of markets, and have partnered with Rappi in Brazil, Corner Shop in Canada, similar to the Uber Eats and DoorDash here in the US, and Big Basket in India, as case in point, where we are focused on those channels and delivery mechanisms. And we have been able to serve new consumers through new fulfillment models. And that was new to us, right? It was completely
that's super interesting.
About a completely new fulfillment model, logistics, the portfolio, etc., had to be radically shifted in a fast manner. And I applaud our teams for embracing these new technologies and coming up with creative solutions. And to that point, I think it is all about creative problem solving and tapping into these insights and responding in an agile manner.
Yeah, that's definitely the exciting part of the marketing, that it's just this blending between e-com and marketing campaigns. It's just never-ending opportunities there for sure. So because you're running all these global markets, and some markets we know are very advanced, other might be really good labs for testing new strategies. And are you doing this just using the international platform also to just try new things that are, from a creative standpoint, really progressive, really advanced, perhaps can become the future blueprint for the whole organization and your biggest markets?
Yeah, absolutely. With the different brand development and category development, it allows us to be entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
We can test and learn different things, but at the same time, I'm very cognizant of not testing and learning for the sake of testing and learning, but a test and learn that has a clear KPI, an action standard that allows us to scale across markets. That is very important as we design our test and learn. And that's something that I pay particular focus on. And that aside, when I look at my initiatives across the varied markets, I love to celebrate similarities. Right? Born and brought up in India and having lived and worked in 6 countries around the world, I'm very cognizant of how consumer lifestyles and tastes are different. At the same time, I've observed plenty of similarities in consumer context, behaviors, and attitudes that allow us to get to that common consumer insight. And I focused on this universal human truth that we want to uncover so that we can get to this big idea for a marketing campaign or a big consumer insight that is common across markets for a new product. And case in point, we launched Ice Cream Shop in 14 countries with the same insight, the same portfolio, and it was teamwork, but it's all about celebrating similarities. On the flip side, we tested and learned, your earlier point, a insight on the She campaign, which is all about celebrating women and empowering women for a sustainable world. And that even though it started as a gem of an idea in Brazil, we quickly saw how it was common and relevant across all markets. And we lifted and reapplied that idea across multiple markets. And now it is one of the big campaigns for international. And to the point about scalability, you test and learn something, and we scaled it across markets.
Wonderful. And that brings us to the end. I would like to thank you for this very insightful discussion, and just hand over the word to Ariel.
Thank you so much, Miha. Appreciate it. And thank you, Ariel, for having me here. It's always a pleasure to be here, reflect on my experiences through these thought-provoking questions. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to the next one.
Thank you, Santhi. The feeling is mutual. We are always so thrilled to have you a part of the community, and I cannot wait to see the sessions to come. So have an amazing day, and thank you, Miha, as well. Hope to see you back soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. So with that, we have another exciting session for you all. Please give a warm welcome to Brad Blondes, the Global Head of Brand Creative and Design at MetLife. The session will be moderated by Eli Chapman, the Chief Marketing Officer at Celtra. Welcome.
Hey guys, I am just putting my virtual background on. Give me a second here.
No worries.
Okay. open. Okay.
Hello, how are you, Eli?
Good. How are you, Ariel?
Great. Where are you dialing in from?
I am in Brooklyn.
Amazing. Love it. Well, great to have you both. Brad, welcome. I'll leave
Hey,
it to
guys.
you two.
All right, excellent. Welcome, Brad. Good to see you again.
Hey, Eli, is the virtual background working okay? It looks like I kind of have blue teeth.
Yeah, I know, and I've got Pat Riley's hair here, so I
Yeah.
don't know. You're welcome to turn it off. Either way, I mean, I don't know if you've got a light on or.
Yeah, I might well let's keep it.
It's kind of cool. It's got like a Warhol-esque look and feel.
I got the
Excellent. So,
posterized look. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Just a quick introduction for myself to the audience. Eli Chapman, Chief Marketing Officer at Celtra. New to the role at Celtra, previously was doing strategy and sales. I've got a background in different marketing roles and different technology roles, but really kind of getting back to basics here in this marketing role, looking at the Celtra brand, and diagnosing the brand, being able to build strategies for the brand and do some real marketing. It's really fun. I'm excited to talk to you today, Brad, about creative excellence, staying on brand in the digital age, and a number of other topics. Maybe you can just give a quick introduction to yourself for the audience.
Sure. Yeah, and so I'm Brad. Hi, nice to see everyone. I currently am the global head of global brand creative and design at MetLife, and I've been at MetLife for about 4 years. My responsibility is basically to drive our brand and brand expression forward across all of our channels, both on and offline, and both internally and externally. And I've been at MetLife for about 4 years now. Prior to that, I was exclusively agency side. I worked in a number of ad agencies, branding agencies, digital shops, small boutiques, you name it. And so that's me. I also just wanted to say thanks for having me, and just give a shout out to both brand innovators and actually Michelle Fro, who's a colleague of mine at MetLife who got me into brand innovators right before the pandemic. And I gotta say, throughout the past almost, I guess, coming up on 2 years soon, it's just been a great way to stay connected while we've all been kind of isolated and doing our work from home thing. So I just wanted to say thanks to you guys for having me and letting me be a part of this.
Absolutely, yes. Thank you to Brand Innovators. It has been a great resource, and it's hard to believe it's coming on 2 years, right?
Yeah.
In our conversations leading up to this, we talked about what is creative transformation and kind of big transformation initiatives. And one of the topics that kept coming up was the idea of the fundamentals, or getting back to the basics. I think that that's a good starting point for us in terms of just what does that mean. When you're looking at big initiatives, you've launched a number of big initiatives already at MetLife. What are your thoughts on what are the basics? How do you get back to them? And take us through your thinking there.
Sure. I mean, I'm a true believer in the fundamentals, and I hate to use a sports analogy because it's so sort of trite in the business world, but I think it might be helpful. I mean, there's a quote from Vince Lombardi that said, "Fundamentals win championships," and he would start, I think, his training season by telling his very accomplished teams, "This is a football." I think, in addition, another one of my sports heroes, I guess, would be Phil Jackson, coach of the Michael Jordan era Bulls and Lakers, and he had this back to basics sort of mentality and approach, which for a lot of his players, I think was a bit shocking. He would do things like, during practice, have players practice without the ball and just work on, their sort of spacing on the court, that sort of thing. But even outside of sports, and I'll get to how this applies to creative in a minute, but I think, even things like yoga, right? I'm not an expert in yoga, but there are many different types of yoga, right? You have Bikram yoga, you have Vinyasa yoga, you have power yoga. I think you can even have a goat stand on you while you do yoga these days. But the fundamental to yoga is breathing and your core, right? That doesn't change. So I think that when we look at creative, I think we as marketers can sometimes get hung up on the many different types of outputs or destinations where your creative might live or end up. But the fundamentals, in my opinion, don't change. And so I think when you look at, creative, is it rooted in a true insight? Does it make you stop and think? Is it unexpected? When you look at design, there's certain rules about design around aesthetics and beauty that have been studied for, centuries by the great philosophers. These fundamentals around harmony, balance, these type of things do not change. So I'm sure we'll hit on it a little bit later in our talk, but the idea of canvases or spaces where creative might show up, right? You think of a social post or a mobile screen or a television screen, something out of home, an environment, an app, whatever. These are, in my mind, analogous to the many different types of yoga, but the creative that lives within them will always be rooted in those fundamentals if they're to be good. So that's kind of how.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, maybe we just drill into that, right? So the essence, the breath of creative. What in your mind, are there building blocks to that? I mean, obviously there's the years of design work and thinking on this. There's the insight or the ability to get the insight in the process to do that. But what do you see as sort of the building blocks of an elements for yourself? And then, and then we can get into maybe how you use those to get towards creative excellence.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are some things like I was mentioning before around, harmony, balance, aesthetics, the more of a tactical, when you get into the, the making of creative assets or expressions. I think though, what I see happening more, these days, when you think about the traditional building blocks of a brand and how those are created, developed, and distributed, you're often looking at what we would call like a traditional brand guidelines. And this would be your identity system, all the photography, illustrations, graphics, colors, typography, all those things that traditionally have been used to build a brand. I think, as if we look through the lens of creative transformation, these building blocks have to become more modular and more adaptive. And you have to demonstrate through whatever guidelines you publish about, your brand system. You have to demonstrate how those assets flex across not just traditional media, but digital media as well, and digital expressions as well. And I think, you and I had been talking last week a bit. You showed me some examples of, some of the work you're doing at Celtra, which I found very fascinating because I think, oftentimes, when we have these discussions with our partners, it's hard to imagine what we mean by that, like how a brand could adapt to a social asset, let's say. But there are so many creative and interesting ways that you can think about color and background and photography and how those assets become modular and create variants of themselves to meet the the overwhelming demand for creative output and expression that exists today.
Yeah, that's great. I think that this movement towards modularity, right? Building blocks, moving towards a more modular system, and then trying to carry that essence through, right? So how can you build and shape the tactical execution of the idea in a way that carries that through and carries essence through, and can you doing that just in one place is hard enough, right? But can you actually then build systems and guidelines leveled up from sort of the brand guidelines of the past that enable global teams to implement at that level? I have a couple of those examples that you're talking about. Maybe I should just share those just for a second to, let me just see if I can do this 1 second. So Brad and I were going through, we were discussing this exact idea. And so we just put together a couple slides to just give examples. Can you see my screen, Brad?
Yes.
Okay. I won't go full screen. I'll just simply click through. But Brad talked about a social post. Imagine a social ad for a brand's product. And here's an example of our guidelines being kept. Is there any branding being carried through? Is there a story being told? Is the essence of whatever that original idea? Is there the product itself is the hero? It is the only thing there, right? And if your product is a big enough brand and it's well branded, maybe you're telling a little bit of a story there. But really, how are you using your building blocks in this instance? So this idea of just simply applying consistent branding into those kinds of channels, for example, with here's Yeti taking an on-brand color that matches the product hero and adding a logo to create a much better experience. Just as another example, here's a range of products that would normally show up on white in a social post. Now you're seeing them with an on-brand selection of colors that could be, built in an automated way, or you could have a set of reference system that it's calling to, and allow those stories to be told, right, in a more granular way. And then what Brad spoke about too, having building blocks that can be carried forward. Like, what about this idea of really taking the top of the funnel stories and moving them through a little bit better, and giving yourself more building blocks to build with for those moments? Here's an example of more consideration or upper funnel storytelling that a brand is doing. They've got imagery that's part of the campaign where they're trying to tell a certain kind of story and give a kind of feel. There's an insight there that's driving it. And then they're able to take that through now, again, matching with on-brand colors, matching across a product catalog, creating a much richer experience. So not only is that instance, does it feel different to that consumer, but it actually can marry that feeling that they might have experienced in other places. So as a storyteller, you're giving you've got a bigger breadth, essentially a bigger way to take that essence and make sure it manifests across different places.
Yeah, and I love, this is so inspiring for me to just see the before and after of this, because this is a perfect example of the sort of instances that I think when you look at a traditional brand guidelines or system, these aren't considered until later, right? Like, it's a very top-down sort of exercise of building a brand, and then it's widely distributed, and then you have teams, product design teams, content teams, all sorts of different creative and design teams who are using this document as a guidance. And then often they have to guess and figure out on the fly, okay, how does this apply to what I'm doing? And I think it's necessary for all brands to consider, how the brand is expressed all the way at the top of the funnel, all the way through down, because those lower funnel touches are arguably becoming more important than the upper funnel. So I think that's a really cool example that you just showed.
Yeah, thanks. We've actually seen some stats that show because lower funnel, there's a high frequency of them against your audience because they're as they've been self-identified, right, as showing interest in a product through some mechanism, whether they are on a shopping cart or whatever it is. And so now there's some performance marketers kind of drilling in, trying to make sure they convert. And we've seen some studies that show up to 85% of your brand's impressions with your audience can be in these performance ads. And whether you knew that or not, that can be what's happening. And yes, it's a huge risk to yourself as a brand. I think, Brad, the point you brought up about you don't think about it until later. Like you're here I am in the world, I've got to activate something. I've got, on one hand, it could be a CRM plan, a media plan, whatever it is. On the other hand, I've got guidelines, and then I've got a set of assets I'm working with. And, is there, how do you think about bringing that information back upstream, right? How do you take the sort of context or the behaviors that might exist and start to think about, enable them to be thought about earlier in the process, or as part of guidelines, or for the teams that might be activating against them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think a lot of times we discover these new problems, after the fact, and we have to do some backtracking to make sure that, we can solve for it correctly. I mean, I give you one example. We create a lot of apps at MetLife, and a lot of them are internal and some are external. We're starting to create more external as we continue on our digital transformation. The app ecosystem, the naming conventions, the iconography, how it shows up in the App Store, it has not been considered, right? There's no guidelines right now about how to deal with that. So we are forced, in a good way, to think about how we can flex our brand to adapt to that different environment. And I think, I don't know what the answer is in terms of how we start to influence, these sorts of behaviors or activities or goals from the beginning, but clearly, it has to, in my mind, I think if you're, I think we need to get better at anticipating the different types of environments or outputs or canvases or spaces where the brand is going to live, and include that in that enterprise level top-down guidance. I mean, I think, again, traditionally you might see, okay, here's your brand, here's your identity system, here's how it, here are the building blocks, here's how it applies to an ad. here's how it applies to a t-shirt, here's how it applies to, an out of home. And these are more traditional, landing places for where the brand might show up. But I just think it's as simple as we have to evolve as an industry to start thinking about those things sooner.
Yeah,
earlier.
that's a fantastic point. I mean, it's one thing to have sort of best practices of a channel, but what you're pointing to is the aggregated effects of transformation initiatives end up creating this larger set of challenges. And there isn't a preview button for your transformation initiative. There's no way to say, okay, we're going to build, there's some challenge you have, some initiative is kicked into motion. You work towards solving a set of, and you stagger it because it's gigantic. And meanwhile, you're starting to make an impact. The impact creates new problems that are unthought, have not been fleshed out yet.
Yeah.
Maybe we use that as a stepping point. So I ran into on social what I've now heard is called the Digital Brand Project, which was the launch of digital.metlife.com. I ran into it through, I believe, one of the creative design leads who might have worked on it from one of the agencies that worked on it. It was a really exciting project. I looked at it. Yeah, maybe you could just tell us a little bit about that as one of your transformation projects, your creative transformation projects, about how you're trying to keep MetLife on brand in the digital age.
Yeah, that was a super exciting project to work on. Just want to caveat by saying it was a huge group across many disciplines at MetLife, and was an honor to be a part of it. I think, yeah, just going back to what we were just discussing around what you anticipate and where you anticipate your brand showing up. We didn't necessarily consider that when we launched our brand back in 2016 beyond the traditional channels, right? So MetLife matured. I've been there for 4 years. We've come a long way in terms of our digital transformation, our experience design practice, how we run design sprints, how we do design thinking, how we even run agile teams within our group. We've come a long way. Still a long way to go, but plenty of work done there. I think we got to a point in our maturity where we had to say, okay, how should the brand show up within our digital ecosystem? So that's, if we're launching a new app, or if we're revamping a homepage in Japan, whatever. And the reason why it came up was we were doing those activities, but doing it in what I would say, like, focus more on the functionality, right? We're focused on, if we're revamping the a homepage in X market, we want to make sure it works. We want to make sure it functions. We want to make sure that the customer can log in, that they can do what they need to do and get out. And that, that definitely is, I think that led the charge in terms of how we were transforming. As we matured, I think we started to say, but wait a minute, we've done a lot of work around not only building our brand at the center and at an enterprise level, but also localizing our brand across our key markets. And there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to leverage those assets within those digital spaces. Now, once you get to those digital spaces, it's harder to wrap your head around, where does the brand fit in, right? Because even in your examples, right, like those are social posts. Really, when you break it down, it's the background, right? Like that's the space that you can add a brand signal, right? Which I think, in our discussions, we both agree adds a ton of value compared to the one on the left that was on a white background, right? Mm-hmm. It's very difficult to one, wrap your head around, and two, identify the areas within, let's say, a website that can be branded. And and then as you drill down deeper, there is the idea of branding a surface, which could feel like an ornament or a wallpaper, right? Or there's the idea of, I would say the more conceptual approach to how brand and storytelling and content all kind of work together to enrich an online experience and actually add to usability, seamlessness, satisfaction when you start to get into the UI elements. And I could go on and on, but you could also start to think about those spaces as marketing spaces where the canvas gets a little bit bigger and more flexible. That could be a homepage hero component, right? That's like a big space to activate your brand. Or when you get into more servicing moments, right? Like we have a find a dentist sort of servicing platform within MetLife.com. We started to ask ourselves, why can't or how can the brand play a role even in this very service function-led part of the site? So again, I could kind of go on.
Yeah. It's fantastic. It's a massive project. And I really recommend people take a look, digital.metlife.com. And it lays out a number of pillars of what Brad is talking about, and gives a bunch of tools and mechanisms that people can be enabled by, and in a lot of different contexts, like you're saying, marketing, service development, app development, etc. I think it's really broad, and it's a huge transformation initiative. Maybe some interesting challenges that I think come out of that are this idea of staying on brand, and how do you keep consistency, and how do you police it is the wrong word, but really, all this effort goes in. This is how things ought to be. Here's some guidance and some rules, and then there's actual implementation in a specific market. And I think on one side is just the policing of brand guardianship and that side of it. The other is sort of the transcreation, right? The localized, the effort that someone's going to make their message work. And how do you go about supporting it from this global hub?
Yeah, this is the $1 million question. Anyone who's ever worked in a global capacity would probably commiserate with me how hard it is to enable a team outside of your own with the tools and assets and resources to go make and let them do the good work they're going to do without creating too many guardrails. At the same time, managing that consistency and excellence. It's very difficult. I will say, like, if my agency, my ex-agency folks are watching this and hearing me out here, I think like a lot of it is incumbent on the agency partners that we work with to not just take all these guidance and tools and so forth and interpret them literally, but to find the sweet spot between the literal interpretation and the going way too far out of bounds into a different universe place, and help push us to build off of what we have what we've published, and to create the thread that connects the original to the new. To be completely honest, and maybe I was a bit cavalier when I was younger and agency side, but when someone would give me a 200-page brand guidelines, I would just kind of like push it to the side and say, all right, I get it. Or, flip through it really quickly. Get it? Okay. let's see where we can kind of take this to the next level. So I think that's part of it, right? Part of it is really encouraging our agency partners to push. But there are inherent problems in that too, right? But budget, talent, it's not an easy solve. We've also, I think the other side, when you get into the real governance and management side of it in-house, we've tried many different ways of doing it. And there's no right answer. There's no right answer. I think so much of it comes down to, creating an environment. I mean, this is going to sound cliche when I say it, but it's, allowing your partners across your teams feel like they have ownership over the work, that they help create it, that their input is recognized, that they feel invested in what you've done and what you've created together, and understand where, like, the push and pull between what's in and out of bounds. Again, not easy to do, but I've found every time I've tried to helicopter in and shut down a program and say, we're starting from scratch, this is all wrong, that sometimes it works, but most times it doesn't create the sort of relationship that builds good brand and good brand stewardship. You really have to do it together, I think.
I think that's great, Bad. You in both previously, this idea of, when you played out the effects of the app ecosystem, right? You built out all these digital apps. Now there's this new problem: naming conventions, the icon. There's no architecture that actually, the brand architecture of your app ecosystem, however you want to call it. Here is another sort of ripple effect you're describing, right? You've got the push and pull, and I think that's an area. That sweet spot in between literal interpretation of an idea and then that different universe. It's almost like you're advocating for, or maybe we're just ideating on it, this idea that you could have as part of, number one, enablement for the teams, right? And that co-investment somehow that they're feeling in. It's their project, their work, their brand. They understand, and they've got to be enabled. They have to be on the same page from the guidelines. Number one. Number two, sounds like there's this modularity to what you're doing. If things are built the right way, they can be modular, and you can carry that essence through into different channels. But then, what are they saying, or what are they actually doing in those channels? Here's that push-pull you're talking about, through agency partners, perhaps giving them a chance. Is it something where you can imagine that as part of the brand guidelines, it's almost like a story guidelines, and you have instances of how creative is played out from that literal example to an extreme, and maybe it's even contextualized to a country. Like you have, here for Spain, this is one side and this is the other, and you've worked with maybe a Spanish agency, to help get there. Have you tried ever, playing that localization through? Is that something you've ever worked on as part of these bigger projects?
Yeah, I think we have to. That's kind of what I was getting, towards around adaptability and the new way of thinking about brand. Because if we think about it just as a set of literal building blocks and assets that people can, make their own work off of, it's too short-sighted of an outlook. I think, we have to start thinking about storytelling as a compendium to the design system, that content, different content modes, different topics. I think that kind of goes hand in hand with tone of voice as well. That's often like what I've experienced as the most overlooked type of guidance that you can give. But I think if we can start to address the different types of storytelling modes and expressions that a brand either already is doing or wants to do or aspires to do, I think that is I think that's just going to help the cause overall. I think one thing we got to be careful of is you can't boil the ocean. You can't cover everything. You have to leave room for your agency partners and the creative folks who are hungry to do great work. If you don't give them the space to figure out on their own what could be an even better story or even better concept or campaign, you're going to box them in, and they're going to give you a literal interpretation of what you've created.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, when I worked at RGA, Nick Law used to say, because I was building up the comms planning practice, and he looked at what I was helping build out as, help us figure out the sphere that all the innovative ideas should happen within. It's like if you don't have the sphere, it could be everywhere. But if you can show, within here, anything is possible, and it's still gigantic once you're inside of the sphere. You feel like it's a whole world. But it's that same principles. So I think we're at time for asking questions. Great. We got, hi, Brad. This is from Josh Fonsheim. With your experience in agencies and now working with a sole brand, have you ever worked with in-house creative? And if so, what are the positives, negatives working with in-house creative compared to outsourcing the creative?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's pros and cons to everything. I think, in-house creatives, they're going to really understand the brand. They're going to live and breathe the brand every day. They're going to, keep up with the churn on a daily basis and know who all the players are, the politics, at what we can do, what we can't do. I think, when you work with agencies, I think you have, the whole black box. I'm going to go away for a couple of weeks and come back to make a big splash presentation. I don't think those days are over, but I could just speak from my own experience that isn't as helpful. And we've tried to create models where, also working with RGA, your alma mater, where they're much more embedded, not as like consultants or anything like that, but really working with our teams. I think we're just as a piece of advice, I think one thing I've always had to balance is the internal creative teams are just as passionate about what they're doing and their work as the agency. And if you give too much to the agency and you turn your in-house creative team into reviewers or strategists or that sort of role, I find they want to get their hands dirty. They want to roll up their sleeves. They want to create. So I think if there's no right or wrong answer, but I think hybrid models have worked for us, and balancing that creative opportunity is the tricky part. But if you can make it work, the work is great.
Yeah, that's a fantastic answer, and it's really in line with what we've been hearing across different in-house teams we work with and different marketing teams and creative teams that have external agency partners or hybrid models. Once you're inside, it's almost like the briefing process that goes on within an agency, right? It's this really extensive process. Inside, the brief can be really quick. You can see what the opportunity is. That range, like you're talking about. How to actually get it done. And there's that chance to move faster and execute quicker and learn faster. But if you're trying to get outside of that range, that's where really an external agency can really help push to something you hadn't thought of.
Yes. Yeah.
Any other questions? Otherwise, I think we are at the end of our time. Happy to keep going, Ariel, but want to make sure we're holding true to the calendar, the schedule. But it's been great talking to you. A fantastic set of experience, and just thanks for making some time.
Likewise, Eli. I really have had fun this past week just talking with you, and I'm happy we're able to do this.
Excellent. Thank you to Brand Innovators.
Thank you both so much for joining for another incredible session. I hope to see you both very soon.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye. All right. Well, with that, I am excited to bring on the last and final session of the day. Please give a warm welcome to our next two speakers. We have Adam Palmer, the Director of Creative Production Operations at GoDaddy. The session will be moderated by Matt O, the Vice President of Enterprise Sales at Celtra. Welcome.
Thanks for having us. Much appreciated.
Great to have you. How are you today? Where are you beaming in from?
Beaming in from Central Oregon. I'm in beautiful Bend right now, looking out at the beautiful mountains that sadly do not have any snow on them right now, but we're looking forward to some.
I'm with you there as well. I'm in Boulder, Colorado, so ready for ski season.
Totally.
I'm jealous. Hi, Ariel. Hi, Adam. Great to see you again.
Hello, welcome.
I'm joining from New York City.
Hello.
Cool. I see in our thumbnails my spiked faux hawk got cut off there, but now it's fully down. Really excited, and thank you to Brand Innovators for bringing us on. This has been great to sit in on some of the previous speakers, and the conversations there have been amazing.
Yeah, for sure. Going last is going to be tough, Adam. Those were some good sessions, but
let's do this.
Let's jump in here. So let's just start with some introductions. Tell us about your story, how you got to GoDaddy, and I'll do a quick introduction after you.
Okay, sounds great. I'm Adam Palmer. I've been at GoDaddy as the Director of Creative Production Operations for 2.5 years now. Prior to that, I spent 15 years at Viacom working at MTV, VH1, and BET, and had 15 great years there, but decided to make the jump over to the brand side, seeing some great opportunities in a lot of things that the last speakers and Brad and Eli were talking about on in-housing with a lot of the creative and branding work.
Oh, wow. In-housing is such a buzzword, and it triggers some memories from my experience at TubeMogul as well. So just a quick background about myself. I'm based in New York, and I actually joined Celtra last year in August, coming from Adobe, working with clients today that include like an Adidas or a GoPro, et cetera, just helping scale content. As you know, that creative gap is widening every day.
It is.
It sounds like, oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, go for it.
I was going to say, it sounds like you spent a lot of time in New York, so it's always good to commensurate with fellow New Yorkers. So
100%.
I think we have real quick, during the research for our fireside chat, I saw that you were a big part of Made in America. If you can tell us a little bit about what that is for the folks that are here and are dialed in or on the video. Would love to hear more about it.
Absolutely. Since the screen's up, why don't we go ahead and watch a little bit, and then I'll talk it back.
All right, cool. Sounds good.
The average person in the United States does not come from privilege.
At GoDaddy, our mission is to make opportunity inclusive for all. Entrepreneurship is not just a business. It is about our whole lives.
I have been working my tail off on just trying to find new partnerships, new clients, new experiences. My name is Busy Ramsey, and this is Just Energy Entertainment. Here we go. 3, 2, 1.
I'm a farmer and an owner on the Navajo Nation. On Navajo, if we're not healthy, then our community can't go on.
Our first season, we grew enough for maybe one salad.
I'm stressed, I'm not gonna lie, but I'm gonna take it on.
This is not a hobby, this is a way of life. We have to make it work.
place.
I have to release some news to you. It's big news for us.
It means a lot to me because you're able to show your community that you're there.
So many of us, after a long, hard year, we're still here.
Watch the full episodes of Made in America, a GoDaddy series.
That was great. Yeah, tell us a little bit more about the series.
So the series is now entering into its third season. Every season we look at different areas and regions within America. We've been now to Memphis, Tennessee, Atlanta, Georgia, and this season that launches next week on October 14th takes place in Phoenix, Arizona. So as you saw in the trailer, we're in Phoenix. We're also in Navajo Nation. And really the impetus for this series was creating a touch point with audiences to really explore and really advocate the work that we're doing on the GoDaddy side to make opportunity accessible for all. That's one thing that we're really putting within our vision of our brand structure moving forward. And when I first started at GoDaddy, one of the first and most inspirational conversations that I had was speaking to our lead on the corporate social responsibility side, and seeing the work that team is doing to basically enact and try to create that opportunity, really narrow the opportunity gap where we see low opportunity areas where people are not, they don't have the access to peer networking of other entrepreneurs, of CDFIs and startup capital funding, even clear through to the angle where people like Sherilyn Yazzie, who's out in Navajo Nation, they have really limited bandwidth on internet connectivity. So looking at some of those challenges, GoDaddy is all about the everyday entrepreneur. That's our customer. And there are some amazing stories to be told around that entrepreneurial journey. So from my vantage point, just hearing and seeing what culturally was happening within the confines of our company and the efforts that were being made, that to me was like a great first initial conversation to start ideating around what can we do to make that bigger and help others understand, not just entrepreneurs, but individuals who can buy locally, right? They can buy from the mom and pop, buy from, make their purchases more purpose-driven around the cottage industries that we have across Main Street America. And that's really kind of the lifeblood of what we've been doing in all three seasons of Made in America to this point, which is really exciting. And it's been an amazing way to understand not just our customer, but understand the challenges that our economy faces as a larger macro view of this opportunity for entrepreneurs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially even pre-COVID, entrepreneurs, had difficulty accessing a lot of the resources you're talking about, I'm sure, but, coming out of COVID as well and going through that, just watching some of the episodic series, it was really, inspirational to see that. And I'll be totally upfront, prior to prepping for our fireside chat, I hadn't heard about it, but through this pandemic, just being home, my wife has been watching a lot of Shark Tank, and it's on. I kind of passively watch, and then I watch some of the episodes for Made in America. The storytelling is great, and it seems really authentic versus kind of like people just coming on a bigger network trying to get advertisement for their brand. And it sounds like it feels like a lot of work and time has been put into this to tell that story. So the follow-up there is, how did you guys get budget approval for this?
So, a lot of that, a good portion of that really comes through, the want and need from our side to advocate, these opportunity gaps that exist. So from a vision of the future from the GoDaddy standpoint is to radically shift the global economy towards the independent venture. And as we look at that, in order to radically shift it, you have to call out some of those challenges that already are pre-existing, right? Some of those preconceived notions around starting your own business, how difficult that can be, and how personal that is to people once they do launch. It's a lot of it is putting yourself out there, and the risk aversion that a lot of people have towards starting their independent venture. That being said, the fulfillment that comes from putting yourself out there, from having a purpose, from having a goal, and to see that come to fruition with your own business is you see it in the eyes of people that we work with, and our customers, and in individuals that you know personally through friends and family and your social network, to see them endeavor to go and open a brick and mortar or open an e-commerce based business. Those are the fulfillment level that they have coming out of that, and the amount of pride that they take in the work that they do really is incredible. So the funding for this really was an activation where we had a brand purpose. We had the vision of the brand. We had the work that we were already doing, which was highly crucial, right? Because with any cause-led branding, any messaging that you're putting out, if you're not really doing the hard work on the ground floor, it's going to ring hollow. No matter how pretty the pictures are, how well executed the design is, unless you're doing that hard work and making those laborious efforts, it's going to fall on deaf ears. And authenticity, as we know, is a huge component to connecting and creating that engagement, as opposed to turning somebody off within the audience because it's not clear that you're making that extra effort and energy.
Yeah, no, that's actually a good segue. I'm going to ask, let's get tactical, right? So you have this brand vision. It's an unbelievable story. The content is great. Would you consider this upper funnel, mid funnel? And then part two of that is, how do you then approach creative excellence and storytelling in the whole funnel? And, in contrast to buy the domain for 99 cents, where does this Made in America sit next to that? And how do you merge those two?
It's a great question, and it's something that we're making the playbook while we're doing it, right? We're seeing what levers connect, not just with the audience externally, which is hugely important, and excited to get more into that side of creating content specifically for the audience. But the levers that you start to understand on the internal metrics side, like how does this lift our brand affinity? How does this have potential to push further into marketing funnel operations, right? Like how does that become a business tactic as well as a brand affinity play? So what we're seeing is ways to connect our bigger long form content plays like Made in America, and how we strategize around, these are customers that we now have a pretty deeply embedded relationship with, the customers that we've had in Memphis, the customers that we know and told the stories of in Atlanta and now Phoenix. Like those are actually really strong relationships based on the fact that we've been in the trenches filming documentary content with them for a good amount of time. So GoDaddy is not just a growth partner in their independent venture journey. They're also, advocates on their livelihood, right? Like we've seen them through challenges. We were in Atlanta for last season where we actually had a pandemic hit in the midst of filming, which is its own complete trial and tribulation of how you pull that off from a tactical standpoint. But as we look at it now, like these are inherent advocates for the brand, and utilizing that content in other ways is on the horizon, right? Is like, now how do we take that messaging and how do we communicate that out, right? And doing that under the guise and very, very much so putting at the forefront that entrepreneur, that casted, it's not casted talent, but that casted entrepreneur, how do we advocate for their story and really show their growth in their ventures? And that becomes something of, to speak very tactically, as you asked, that's, look, Made in America season 3 is a 50-minute documentary, right? That we've sliced up into 4 episodic, a 4-piece episodic series. But then we can look at that in terms of short form content. We can look at that in terms of advertising. We can look at that in terms of digital display and banner advertisements. It is for our content, but there is that connection that you start to see what GoDaddy's all about. And I think that's where you start talking about the funnel. I always think of us as like creating those particulates in the ozone that are leading down into that funnel, right? And making that connection of, cool, what are the CTAs? What are the next steps that you want your audience to take, whether it be something philanthropic minded, donating time, donating money, donating resources to some of these very worthwhile causes in partnership, like we did in Phoenix with the Better Business Bureau. How do we create some engagement there to push them into something that is really connected to the content, knowing that GoDaddy is providing that as connected tissue, and that trust layer that we build, that connection with the audiences, really becomes something of a gravitational pull into that marketing funnel.
That's awesome, and it sounds like a ton of work. So how, like, the creative workflow for that, from actual onset video and imagery all the way, like you mentioned, through the funnel for media acquisition, for social, programmatic, do you work with multiple teams internally? I'm sure this is gonna, I'm kind of jumping the shark and jumping into Q&A, but I'm sure the viewers would love to know, do you have an in-house team that helps buy the media, that works with you on creative? How does that workflow work at GoDaddy?
Yeah, it's really cool because it really gets into and is continuity with Eli and Brad's conversation, right? Of like creating that collaborative model, that push-pull, and also something that I pulled out of Santi Ramesh from Hershey's, who spoke earlier about rallying the troops from an internal standpoint, right? Is getting people excited, understanding what the stakes are, understanding what the goals of the content are, and being very clear about that. But then, with in-housing on the not just the media buy side, the press and PR communication side, the production side, like that gives us like that direct connection and that shorthand that Brad was talking about, to be able to, shrink that brief down, right, to the essential, like, here's the job we need to get done, as opposed to kind of black boxing that and sending it to agency side. We do work very closely with all of our media buy team internally at this point for initiatives that are long form documentary content, even some of our more enablement content around like how-to tutorials, like how do I want to start a business, but I'm a crafts person. I know my craft really well. I'm not a CMO. I'm not a CFO. I need some of those hints, tips, and tricks to really propel the initiative forward. And that for us, from a collaborative standpoint, it's really put just that much more wind in the sails when we talk about, what media we target, what audiences we target, how we generate KPIs that are very, specific and unique to this space. I mean, we're not talking about direct advertising. We're not talking about direct impact. We're talking about planting that seed in the ozone, in the particulates, and passing them down funnel. How do we create the performance indicators around that say the work that we're doing is strong, the work that we're doing is engaging audiences, and that audience component really comes from really strong audience listening that is sometimes a lot of boots on the ground, right? It's It's scrolling through comments that we're getting on video content, reviews that we get on our podcast content, some of the breakthrough creative testing that we do in pre-production before we jump into publishing any of our content. Are we asking the right questions of our audience? And what is it that we see as the value proposition for the audience? That becomes really, I think that's without giving too many secrets away, that is the secret sauce, right? Is knowing that this content is actually drawing some utility from the people that you're promoting it to, or that through search and discovery find your content. Once they've found it, that's hard work, man. That's really hard work. So how do you connect that and dial that in to the point where it's like, you found me, I'm seeing you, and now I want to engage, right? Like, that's a big jump, and you have high attrition rates and how many people are going to dive into that. But you have to not, miss that opportunity. You have to take that shot and connect with them with content that is going to engage with them, that they are, that they are dialed into what it is that you've created.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's kind of spooky. It sounds like everyone is rowing in the same direction there at GoDaddy, because out just doing research on all the campaigns, I had read an interview of your CMO, Farrah Howard, and the interviewee had asked, what advice would you offer to others entering the advertising industry, especially at this weird time? And I think the source content was from The Drum. And her answer, basically, I'm just going to read, quote, "Advertising is about creative connection between your message and your audience." Very similar to what you're saying, Adam. Despite the changes and weirdness that we're facing, it's fascinating time to be in the advertising, because these changes and challenges are truly global, and that is rare. So it's very similar in a broader scope to what you're saying. But one curveball here, and we didn't even talk about this in the prep, we can't really talk about audiences without talking about third-party cookies and everything that's going on. What's your personal opinion on where the industry will be going, and how is GoDaddy looking at that challenge moving forward?
That's a great question. I think this is where I'm looking at the opportunity behind the storytelling that all of the speakers today have been talking about, right? Is that we're in this competition with our competitive sets. But I think the right-minded way to look at this in brand storytelling is specifically how we're looking at that goal of being an iconic brand, right? So that your brand speaks louder than words, right? Your logo incites some kind of emotive connection and responsibility. And I think that makes this time extremely valuable to be playing in that space with regards to, how your brand is communicated with, how your brand it shows up in any given platform, be that programmatic buys, be that your owned and operated streams, or even in the linear television streamer world, right? Yeah. Whether that's product integration or whether that's executive producing incredibly engaging content. That to me feels like a really strong workaround for us to be able to say, hey, look, does not help. It makes it extremely hard to make it certifiable, verifiable, and trackable. But I think what we're doing is a little bit of a leap of faith in understanding that the brand storytelling that we're doing is making a connection, is making a fan out of somebody who is a maybe customer, maybe a 5 year down the road. But those are all incredibly important resources to put behind with that long tail opportunity in mind.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you guys have a overarching strategy there, and I'm really looking forward to the next city, which is Phoenix. So when is that launching?
October 14th.
Nice. And how long does that take to shoot?
So it actually varies. We had we've tried to be within like a 3 to 4 month period of principal photography on each of those seasons. The pandemic really led us in a direction, and I'll use a different series that we launched earlier this year called Go Forth, which is about adventurers. Their love of outdoors have led them to pursue a small business solopreneurship or a small business inspired by adventure. We actually got the great opportunity to work with Tony Hawk, who,
nice.
I mean, if you could look at the world of entrepreneurs who exist in that space, who have thrived in that space, a legendary skateboard icon is not a bad partner, and has really shown that, you know, the inspiration that we derive out of this content, it can be pretty high level and really engaging. The idea behind principal photography on that, again, was kind of cookie cutting, and 3 months in the trenches is enough to really tell those stories, to give enough oxygen to those stories so that you do have a narrative arc, right? We're looking for those highs and lows. We're looking for those challenges. And ultimately, we want to see the payoff, right? As a viewer, you want to see, are those obstacles overcome? Are those financial barriers overcome? We didn't intend to produce this series Go Forth during a pandemic, and we were actually about 2 months into our principal photography and starting to wrap up some of those stories, right? We were seeing some great narrative storylines that were in the short term, and then it all got completely thrown for a loop with the pandemic. And we saw small businesses that were on the brink. And that was, that ended up being a year and a month. So 13 months in total to tell that full story. But we really, that was the opportunity for us, was that we have to stick through this. The stakes just became that much higher for all of the participants. And it's tough from a standpoint of our team telling these stories. And as I said earlier, being in the trenches with these individuals, you're seeing them go through some serious hardships. You're seeing them being challenged in a way that, it's shaking their conviction. But at the same time, the immense emotional connection that we have was so paid off in seeing them overcome, in seeing them be resilient, and being able to document that. It was worth the overages that we had to pour into that project specifically. But it really was one of those instances where, we almost felt like we were, as filmmakers there, becoming part of that story as it was taking place.
You mentioned film story and just the whole story arc. How do you guys think about distribution, and have you internally discussed like continuity of following a specific business owner through, the valleys of last year, and then maybe next season follow them coming out of the pandemic and kind of the light at the end of the tunnel? And I'm asking this because, being in New York, I'm sure it was very similar in your area last year. It was just sad, like you see so many business owners, whether they're, global or local, just shutter their doors. And now like there's so much activity here in New York, and, kids are back in school and colleges are open, and there's just like a more air of hope. I'm just thinking like that dynamic from the episodic series is going to become much brighter. How do you guys think about like continuity of the characters and the business owners?
Yeah, it's interesting because you see some businesses that have their level of success already made, right? Like they're not looking to franchise, or perhaps it's as part of a solopreneurship, the ceiling or the growth that they have, they're not looking to go that much bigger, right? Like maybe it's about regaining some personal time and bringing on contract roles, or bringing on part-time staffing. And then we do have these other stories that are like unfurling in real time. and we're still involved and invested with these customers because, again, like I said, we've been in those documentary trenches with them. Yeah. We had one such company called Picky Bars that went the route of gaining investment dollars. They then went on to sell their business for a very large sum of money and are still heavily involved in the business. But it's almost like that becomes chapter one of a longer arc for sure. It's something that we do talk about. It's something that we've looked into. The problem with us is not the problem with us. The problem with entrepreneurship is there are so many stories ripe to be told that have, they have those narrative arcs built into them, but really they're individuals who are just inspiring to watch what they're doing in turning their passion into a pursuit. And the problem, as I was saying, Matt, is that there's just so many stories that are incredible out there that we want to uncover them all. We want to see what the journey looks like for all of these individuals that, can only, go back to inspiring others to take that step, to really take that leap themselves.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed the pieces that I've seen on YouTube. And then I'll wrap it up and we'll open it to Q&A. But for distribution, where can the viewers find Made in America?
Yeah, so on the distribution side, we've really anchored a lot of this work around our owned and operated channels. So for our video series, we host everything on YouTube, and it's an area that, again, to the marketing point of view, that brings subscribers in to engage and even discover some of our more tutorial-based content and edu content that will help enable them to take those steps. For our podcast work, we have that on our GoDaddy front of site. So godaddy.com/podcasts is where we distribute all that work. And our social channels and our blog and our newsletter have carried through in a very strong methodology by taking those stories and adding more in-depth and detail where we can around those stories.
Great. It was a pleasure speaking to you, Adam. I guess we can look at Q&A and chat and see if there are any questions. I haven't even looked at the module. I don't think there's any Q&A. Let's see.
One thing I will touch on, Matt, as we were talking through this, is something else that I think has been really utility for us in building out this audience first content play is that has been very useful has been experimentation. And that's what I say for folks who are playing in the space of brand storytelling, and we're looking to really unlock the potential in that space. Experimentation and the in-housing has been a huge side of this. That the experimentation is necessary, right? We're doing a lot of work to really inspire and engage, but the audience is the one that's going to tell you what is working and what is not. Those experiments that we've run have been very, very tactical, clear up to we're going to try releasing, feature-length documentary and episodic content on our pages, right? We're going to look at interview-based content on different platforms and see what that looks like and feels like. And really, I did hear today a lot about the omni-channel approach, and I think that's where we're also looking at what those initiatives look like and how they can stand up for the audiences in a very platform specific manner, which is interesting because we have taken IP that our teams have created and looked at what that performs like and what that sounds like as a podcast versus a video, as a social series versus a podcast, right? So a lot of that experimentation has been really part of the secret sauce to keep learning, keep understanding our audience, ensuring that the value proposition that we create this work against really is doing the work that we need it to be doing, is reaching the audiences that it's intended for as well.
So for A/B testing, you're pretty much doing this always on?
Yes.
Wow, that's a lot of work as well. And then prior to the launch of the episodic series, are you also doing like focus groups, more like qualitative research to see what would land better with the audience?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's everything from creative quality to more quantitative sides of the test. Some of the understanding of what really landed from the creative, what stories really rose to the top and had the most intrigue behind them. Yeah, there's definitely a rigor behind doing that pre-testing work and focus grouping it out, and it has proven extremely helpful for us on two fronts, right? One of them is with your audience, kind of understanding who this content is for, what they liked or what they want to see more of, and where those optimizations can come from. The other side of this, it is hugely important, which comes back to a lot of what the conversation has been today throughout the feed, is this actually sets a benchmark for us to validate for our collaboration, because we don't do this alone. This is not a few filmmakers or podcast producers in a dark corner. There is really an integrated network of brand and marketing, and all of that being led by that brand framework to inspire for that fulfilling lifestyle that we're committed to.
Yeah, actually, that almost sounds very similar to this Q&A that we got. I'll read it out loud. It says, when it comes to communicating with your consumers, how do you think about the brand purpose, and how does that impact your approach to marketing?
So the brand purpose, and this is all of the credit due to the brand and marketing leaderships, and GoDaddy specifically, but even beyond, because that is threading the needle work, right? The idea of leading with our brand purpose, as I said, with Made in America, that's really wearing our shirt, our heart in our shirt sleeve. How we take that through, and how we utilize that content or those assets, and add them into other parts of the funnel. How we look at a customer story and break that into more product-centric messaging, which has been known to happen, right? Like some of these incredibly inspiring stories that we're just like, yeah, we need some more. We need some more, storytelling around this that connects it back to our product, because one of the areas that we are actually much lighter touch in is that long form content. We want that to be audience first. We want that to be attention grabbing. The down funnel side of that becomes more of the, keep that corporate social responsibility, or keep that enabling the everyday entrepreneur as part of the message. It's writing those goals in the first place that actually gives us guardrails to go out and create, to go out and be on brand, even if we are insanely light touch with some of our product placements and the long form content. That was a great question.
Yeah, thank you, whoever posted that one. Ariel, are there any questions in the Q&A?
Let me see. You know what? I rejoined as a panelist. So I don't see any in the last minute or so. Oh, okay.
I see one and I like it. So I'm how does GoDaddy differentiate itself?
Let's hear it.
How does GoDaddy differentiate itself from its competitors? It's great. I love this because it's something we talk about a lot. And the other side of this is, I would say, with an always on content strategy, who are the competitors? Right? Because if we're in a space where our content is being placed in the search and discovery of iTunes or YouTube, your competition is actually pretty broad. It's not your direct product competitors. It becomes all of the publishers and creators and producers of really amazing work and incredible stories. So we have to take that into consideration, that is not a GoDaddy versus product competitive set. That is anything that is attention grabbing, right? If we're in the podcast space, it's going to be around the small business and entrepreneurial podcasts. So we are talking about the Gary Vee podcasts. We are talking about Rachel Hollis, right? Like that becomes the mindset. That becomes the competitive set. So differentiation is really, it starts with the audience, and then you build out from there. The concept of here is your competitive set in market against product. I won't say that we don't look at that and look at their brand storytelling goals and successes and accolades and aim for that. The other side of that, though, is we're taking very seriously everything that we do and put out in market for that platform. And that becomes extremely important, and why I think, I was so excited to jump from a media company and publisher distributor like Viacom over to the brand side, is that methodology and that thinking that, this is about your audience. This is about telling those impactful stories. I hope I answered that question. I really like that question too.
Yeah, that was a great one.
I love that. Well, thank you so much. Is there any other questions or closing words from the both of you?
I just want to say thanks for the opportunity to have this discussion. For me, tactically, I'm usually in the weeds of creative automation and software and technology, but I really enjoy talking about the storytelling of the entrepreneur and the solo entrepreneur. My background, like my mother, I was raised by a single mother who owned a business. So seeing these transformative stories is inspiring. So thanks for putting out the content, Adam. And anyone that's watching this should definitely check out Made in America. It's done really well. It's high quality content. Really appreciate that plug, Matt. Yeah.
Thanks, man. And thanks to Brand Innovators for putting this incredible panel together today. As Matt said, it's kind of tough to take up the caboose here, but the conversations have been ripe and I think have been really great. And just to make sure that you can find that, I would just, because we did get a question, where can you find it? Again, GoDaddy on YouTube and our podcast at godaddy.com/podcasts is the best place to see our full library of content.
And Matt, anywhere you'd like the audience to find you?
So if you missed the introduction, I'm the VP of Sales at Celtra. We help brands globally scale creative content across the entire digital funnel. So if you want to check out our content, go to celtra.com or find me on LinkedIn.
Amazing. Well, thank you both so much. This was such an incredible session, and I cannot wait to have you on our stage again soon. Just amazing. So thank you for your time, and we will be in touch shortly. Have a great day.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot.
Well, thank you everyone for tuning in today. It was an amazing day of speakers. Of course, we have another summit lined up for tomorrow on the future of consumer engagement. So head to our website, brandinnovators.com, to sign up, and hope to see you there. Have a great day. Bye.